One of the worst feelings in the world is that feeling of knowing that the conversation that you were having with a girl that was initially going well is slowly beginning to taper off, right? You just feel like that lack of enthusiasm, the intention is no longer there. You're having a hard time with keeping the conversation going until eventually it just dies. And if a conversation dies, then you can't go past the point of just friendly back and forth conversation. So today I'm going to be teaching you how to actually deal with these pesky conversation killers, like what to do, how to solve it, how to resolve it, where to go from there. And as far as curing or resurrecting dead conversations, there's really two fields of study you can look at it from. Yes, deceased conversations. There are two fields of studies you can look at it from when it comes to you and her talking to each other and this dead space in between you two. The first thing you can think about, and this is what most men try to do whenever they're talking to a girl and things aren't going as well as they wanted to, is they try to add more into the conversation, right? They do the majority of the talking, they put more energy into it, hope for the best. And that's not a bad strategy. In fact, it's a very valuable strategy as long as you execute it correctly. There are certain things you can do, there are certain ways you can go about it to make this work. And that's where stuff like topic hopping come in. That is where you train your own ability to hop from one topic to the other without feeling the need to tie the end of each conversation before you go on to the next one, right? As men, we have this weird weakness when it comes to conversation called logic. And because we have this need to make sense all the time, we have this need to complete the sense we're making or starting to make, right? We need to land every plane, so to speak. That's where topic hopping as a skill comes from, is that it's the way women communicate, right? They kind of just hop from one topic to the other without bringing any single topic to a definitive end. So if you learn how to do that skill, you can definitely keep a conversation going just by yourself and completely kill it, right? There's one way to go about it. My favorite way personally though would be storytelling. Again, another very amazing, very viable strategy. Probably the most powerful one as far as this particular first field of study, which is when you're the one wanting to put in more effort, right? Storytelling is just about the best way to go about keeping a conversation going and getting her even more emotionally invested in the person and experience of you. It's great. But that's just one field of study, right? The other field of study is the one we're going to be discussing in this particular video because, in my opinion, this is by far the best way to keep a conversation going with the least amount of effort on your part. And that is making sure that she's the one putting in more effort than you are. As long as she's the one doing more of the talking than you're moving in the direction you want a lot faster. Because it's true, you can talk your way into some cooch. That's very possible. That's the whole point of this entire channel, right? Teaching you how to do that. However, it's way better and you can get there way faster if you get her to be the one emotionally investing more, right? Because nothing guarantees the results that you want by you holding frame and her essentially dancing to the rhythm of your beat. That's what happens when you're the one sitting back, relaxing, and just letting her yap her face off. That'll get you a lot closer to where you want to get to than you trying to do all the talking and lift all the heavy burdens in the conversation. And that's what we're going to be discussing in this video. The three major skills in this second field of study when it comes to keeping a conversation going. The three major skills you need to essentially instigate her into being the one to do most of the talking. So we're going to talk about right now. All right, let's get to it. There we go. The first skill. This is a basic fundamental skill. And honestly, you kind of have to learn this one to get good at the other two. Right? So it's a very important basic level skill when it comes to keeping a conversation going. I talked about it before. It is called your ability to ask open-ended questions. That is the first skill. Now, what is an open-ended question? An open-ended question, the best way I can put it, the simplest way I can put it, is any question that you ask someone, not just a girl, but in this case, a girl, obviously, any question that you ask a girl that requires more than just a one word or one phrase answer. I'm gonna say that again. If you ask a question that requires the other person to answer with more than just a yes or a no, or just one word or one phrase, or one very short sentence, you have asked an open ended question, as opposed to a closed ended question, which only requires one simple word or one phrase. Like, for instance, if I ask her about breakfast, right? Let's use breakfast as the example here. Let's say that's me, that's her. Nice hair. Let's give me some muscles. Because as you can see, I'm not lying about that. I ask her about breakfast. Let's say the first question I ask her is, did you have breakfast today? Did you have breakfast today? She can decide to answer that with either a yes or a no. That's a closed-ended question. Second question I ask her is, what did you eat for breakfast? That too can have a single word answer. It can be eggs, which means she'd be farty. Ew. Let's give her a fart bubble right here, actually. P.U. It can be fart jokes at damn near 30. I'm fucking awesome. It can also be another type of breakfast item. I don't know, sausages. Well, if she's a bad bitch, she probably isn't gonna have breakfast at all. Or she's gonna lean more protein like that. Egg, sausage, or something pretentious like a kale salad, whatever. I had a kale salad with asparagus and some eggs or some shit like that. Cool. Regardless, though, that doesn't require more than just a few words. It's just one phrase, one very short sentence. It doesn't require her to elaborate at all. Now imagine I asked her a different question about breakfast, like, how did you go about preparing your breakfast today? Now that is an open-ended question, because it requires more than just a yes. You can't even answer that question with a yes or a no, right? On top of that, she can't use just one phrase or one sentence to answer either. And that's important. Getting good at understanding and asking open-ended questions is like the very most important first step to keeping conversations going, because it gives you that unfair advantage, right? You have all the leverage on your side without putting in any more effort than she needs to, right? In fact, you're kind of forcing her to put in all the effort into the conversation. All you have to do is ask one very simple question, and she has to give you this massive, elaborate answer. It's great. Now, I do want to reiterate, this is for conversations that were going well, right? Let's say this is an airplane. I'm pretty sure I still don't know how to draw those. Oh, okay, I'm not doing that bad. Oh, look at that. Not bad. This is for conversations that were going well, but then now are beginning to take a nosedive and crash. It's important that this is the context that we're talking about all of this under. Because if this is a conversation of, you and her talking, but you didn't even begin to see any signs of an indication of interest from her, or the conversation didn't take off to begin with, entirely different problem, right? That's an entirely different problem. Everything I'm talking about in this video is not going to work. Please remember that. I have an entire list of 4 types of conversation starters linked down below in the bio, in the description, right? If you want to solve for that problem, how to create attraction, how to spark attraction, how to create interest and get a girl's attention to begin with, right? We're talking right now about conversations that were going well, but now are dipping. And again, in those ones, open-ended questions are the first and most important skill, right? Why am I being particular about the context here? Because open-ended questions will always work in that particular scenario. If the plane is beginning to dip, right, beginning to see a lack of enthusiasm from her, lack of effort from her, this will naturally bring up the effort again. Naturally, this will force her to put in more effort in the conversation, use more words in the conversation, and as a result, begin to slightly psychologically and emotionally invest herself into the conversation. All right? This is very important. Keep that in mind. Open-ended questions. Okay, that's the first skill. What's the second skill? Gotta keep my board straight. God damn. There we go. Second skill is an important one because it's kind of linked to the first skill. The first skill is learning how to ask open-ended questions, and the second skill is learning how to qualify her. Shooting qualifiers, using qualifiers. What is a qualifier? What does it mean to qualify a woman? The simplest way I can put it is that a qualifier is a device, a literary device that you use to get a woman to impress you. You see, when you qualify a woman, you imply that there's a way she needs to answer your question to impress you, to make you feel like she is an impressive human being, right? Let me put it an even simpler way with more examples. Here's how it works. When you're talking to someone, again, go back to stick figure, you already know, long hair, all that good stuff. When you're having a back and forth conversation with someone, there's always going to be the person who's doing the interview, right? The interviewer and the interviewee. Essentially, the person asking the questions, the person answering the questions. Now, when you talk to a girl, you can't just automatically assume that she knows that, that is a dynamic going on between you and her. And she's definitely not going to automatically assume that, especially if she's beautiful, highly desirable, blah, blah, right? What qualifiers help you to do is to essentially ask questions like someone that's someone that's conducting an interview, which automatically puts you in the position of the interviewer, the person that's holding the frame, the person who needs to be impressed. Right? Very important. Which also automatically puts her in the position of the person that needs to do the impressing. And by the way, it's all about frame, right? It's all about who holds the frame, whose frame is winning, who, put it a different way, who controls the context of the conversation. Because it can only ever be she's answering to you and trying to impress you, or you're answering to her and trying to impress her, right? You want it to be the other way around, which is that she's the one trying to impress you, obviously. So qualifiers help with that. That's a very important thing to understand going forward with qualifiers. All a qualifier is the kind of question or the kind of statement that someone who is in this position of interviewer would ask or say. That is all a qualifier is. A qualifier can be an open-ended question. In fact, just about all qualifiers are open-ended questions. Although not all open-ended questions are qualifiers. There's no that thing they say about how every rectangle is a square, right? But not every square is a rectangle. That kind of thing. Every qualifier is an open-ended question. Not every open-ended question is a qualifier. So a good qualifier, for instance, that you can ask a woman that forces her to try to impress you is, what is your relationship like with your father? There's no yes or no that you can use to answer that, or that she can use to answer that, right? You can't just answer that with a yes or no. And she can't just give a one word or one phrase or one sentence answer, right? Because that makes her look bad. That makes her look not as detailed, suspicious, and all these other negative connotations that she doesn't want put on her when she's talking to an impressive guy like you, right? So, since you're asking a question that forces her to impress you, she's automatically going to assume that you yourself are impressive, because only an impressive person would even care about the answer to a question like that. But also, it forces her to want to give you an answer that she believes impresses you, right? I mean, look at the question itself as an example. What is your relationship like with your father? The only person that would ask that kind of question is the person who actually cares about the answer to a question like that. And for you to be the kind of person that cares about the answer to a question like that, you'd have to be a very particular kind of individual, an individual with standards. Again, automatically puts you as interviewer. But then also, she has to fill in the blank by going, oh shit, this guy, he's particular. He's amazing. If I want to keep talking to him, I better give him the best answer I can come up with, whether it's true or not. Right? And by the way, a quick side note, if women lie to you when you're talking to them, as long as the lies are positive or make them look good, that's a good thing. You kind of want women to lie to you as long as they're trying to lie to, bolster themselves up, make themselves look better to you. That's a good thing when a woman is trying that hard to impress you. Very good. If she's lying to you to hide things from you, or to belittle you behind your back, or to do other negative things, a lie in the opposite direction, then that's a bad thing, sure. But for the most part, if a woman is lying to impress you, that's wonderful. So keep that in mind. Don't punish that. In fact, you want to kind of encourage that, right? So yeah, that is what a qualifier is at its core. A qualifier is any open-ended question you ask that forces the girl to want to impress you. So, what's your relationship like with your father? What did you graduate from college for? Or what's your degree? Or do you have your PhD or something like that? What are your plans in the next 5 years? How ambitious a person are you? You don't have to ask these questions in particular. You can ask the ones that matter to you. And in fact, I would encourage you to ask qualifiers or qualify her with questions that you genuinely have an investment in the answer for, right? You don't want to just ask any question that I give you, because then she'll be able to tell in the moment that you don't care. You almost want her to know on some level that you give a fuck about the answer. And you also want to kind of like use your body language, especially if you're talking to her in person, to show that you care about the answer. So you want to lean in, be inquisitive. I have this eyebrow thing I do where I raise up my eyebrow, and make sure that she knows that I'm very keen on what the answer to her question is going to be. I go out of my way to, pause and nod while she's answering, looking her directly in her eyes, right? Because I want her to know on every level, physically, subconsciously, etc., that everything she's saying will be used against her in the fucking court of law, in the court of Jace, at least, right? So qualify. Make sure you qualify her. Very important. Make her feel the need to impress you. Now, what's the third skill? How do you tie this all up together? It's going to be a very tricky one. It's going to be one that you don't see coming, you don't expect, but it's very important. Disqualify her. What? We just talked about qualifying her. Now we got to disqualify her? Aren't those two things opposites? Yes, they are opposites. But even though they're opposites, they achieve the exact same result, which is forcing the woman to do things or say things to impress you. Whether you're qualifying her or disqualifying her, they achieve the same result. Now, they work in the opposite direction, obviously. Qualifying, disqualifying. However, they both achieve the same result. Impress. It forces her to impress. How does disqualifying a woman make her feel the need to impress you, even though it's working in the opposite direction? Well, it's because of this thing called, I'm sure you've heard about it, or of it, reverse psychology. See, implying that you're asking a question that implies that you care about the answer forces her to want to impress you. We talked about that. In this case, you essentially trigger her into impressing you or trying to impress you by telling her, in one way or the other, overtly or covertly, that you're not really impressed by her. That's what a disqualifier is. When you disqualify a woman, you're telling her, I don't really find you impressive, or I don't really think that this answer is good for me, or this particular trait of yours is appealing to me. All right. And that in itself forces them to want to, do something about it. Forces them to want to double down or backtrack or whatever is appropriate for that moment to try to impress you. Right. That's what a disqualifier does. It's reverse psychology at its finest. Right. And just about the best way to execute it, aside from, you know, the opposite of what a qualifier would look like, which, by the way, let me give an example for that. Qualify, or a qualification question, would be, what's your relationship like with your father? A disqualifier would be more like, I don't know if I want to date a girl that doesn't have a good relationship with her father. Mind you, this is after she's told you that her and her dad are a bit estranged, right? Or they don't have the best relationship, or he left when she was 6, whatever the fuck her sob story is. After that, then you say, I don't know if I want to date a girl that has a weird relationship with her dad. I don't know if I'm up for that or used to that. And then you couple this, and this is very important. This is the second thing I was talking about. You couple this with silence. Oh, buddy. Silence and disqualification go hand in hand, like, peanut butter and jelly. Very important. After saying, I don't know if I want to date a girl who doesn't have the best relationship with her father, and then you stay silent and look at her judgmentally, that will naturally force her to add so much more into the conversation than honestly you wanted. You talk about making a girl turn into a yapathon machine, that's how you do it right there. Because it's two things happening at the same time. The first is the obvious, the need to impress you, right? Wait, hold on. I'm not impressing you? You're telling me I'm not impressing you? Nah, I'm going to work even harder to do so. But then the second thing, and this is where the silence comes in, is that it's an induction of tension. Silence is just about the quickest way to induce tension into a conversation. In fact, this should be its own skill on its own. It should be number 4. So take that as a bonus skill, but that's important to mix with disqualifiers. When you're talking to a woman, let's say after you ask an open-ended question, or make sure that open-ended question is a qualifier in itself. You ask her a question that forces her to elaborate a little bit into who she is, what she's about, her experiences, blah blah, right? Let's say you ask her something goofy like, what was your college experience like, or what was college good for you, something like that. And then she starts yapping about her college experience, blah 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 blah. Maybe she lets it slip in there that she had one too many boyfriends in college. Now you can go, sounds like you had a lot of fun, a little too much fun in college. And then you lean back, you look at her judgmentally, and you stay silent. And then she starts scrambling around to find the right words to explain herself away. Like, no, I wasn't a whore or anything. And then you go, more silence. And then just sit back, relax, and watch her yap forever. It'll be a little annoying, but you need that to happen, right? The longer that happens, the way less dead your conversation will be. Now, I will say, after putting a woman through this emotional stress that is disqualifying in silence to rapidly increase her tension, her sense of urgency, and her willingness to emotionally invest in the conversation, please remember to close this all out by rewarding all her effort, all her hard work. It's very important. Pick at least one of those things that she says during her entire yapathon and just be like, I like that. I fuck with that. Oh, okay, that's what you meant? All right, okay, cool. I guess I can deal with that. Make sure you reward it. If you just leave it at the silent tension and just move on to the next thing, that becomes an unresolved case or scene or idea. Basically, it's something you want to close up. Because if you don't have that resolved, you have that continuing in the back of her mind. And you might think, oh, that's a good thing. Yay, that she still feels underground tension and all that. But the problem with that is, ultimately, she feels like she couldn't impress you. She feels like she couldn't achieve what she was qualifying herself to you to achieve in the first place. And that needs to be resolved. You need her to know that she can impress you, that she has the ability to impress you, at least to some degree, because then that's what makes all that work she did to qualify herself worth it. And that's what will make her more likely to want to do that again. See, you think, oh, if I just go long enough without validating her at all, without making her feel like she has the ability to impress me, that'll increase my chances of getting with her. No, it's not how it works. Women, I'm gonna say it again. Women, stay still, board. Women spook easy. I say this all the time. Women are very fragile creatures. They need a lot of positive reinforcement and tiny hints and bits of negative reinforcement, like the disqualifier mixed with silence to increase tension. But for the most part, women are terrified of putting themselves out there and getting rejected over and over and over and over and over again. It's heart-wrenching for them. It's painful, right? And it's not an emotion they like to feel all the time, so they're going to run away from the source of that emotion, aka run away from you. So if you've ever had situations where you had a girl that was genuinely looking forward to impressing you, and then all of a sudden she just drops out of nowhere and just doesn't talk to you anymore, and you try your hardest to get this girl back or try to talk to her again, like, damn, everything was going so well, what happened? That's probably what happened right there. You didn't reward her for qualifying herself to you. It's very important. You have to reward them for any bit of compliance they show when you're like that. And qualifying themselves to you is compliance. They don't need to. Like, really think about it. If you try to do, and this is why I gave the context in the beginning, right? If you try to do anything I talked about in this video so far, in the case of a conversation that hasn't actually taken off yet, in the case of a girl that hasn't indicated interest in you yet, you'll very quickly see they don't need to qualify themselves. That's why I gave that context in the beginning. If you try to do anything I said in this video, in the case of a conversation or a one-to-one with a woman that hasn't actually shown any real interest in you yet, she'll very easily ignore you because there's no emotional investment yet. There's none. You need emotional investment for all this to work. And that in itself will be the eye-opener to let you see, if they can take it or leave it, more than likely, especially when there's no emotional investment yet, they'll leave it. So always remember, reward her qualification. Reward her every time she goes out of her way to backtrack, every time she goes out of her way to explain herself, every time she goes out of her way to impress you, overtly or covertly. Okay? Very important. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's everything you need to know about making sure your conversations with women actually become cool and fruitful and amazing and, lead somewhere, right? Now, to close this one out, let's make sure that we have Self-Belief 2.0 by now. It is currently free and it's going to be free for the next few days, and then I have to take the price back up. It's inevitable, right? So please, while it is still free, go and register for it. Self-Belief 2.0, so that you can actually build the confidence to talk to women to begin with. All right. All the conversation starters in the world can help you if you don't know how to build the confidence to go and use those conversation starters. Okay? It's very important. It's been Jason, your favorite scientist. With all this information, what you must.